gives you an awesome fiber, because when you process this, you end up with a tweedy yarn. It gives you it's tweed when it's crossed up. And that's why we actually, when we do happen to have one of those years, we get some of the striped fleeces, our buyers just jump on them. They're the very first ones to sell because you get a tweed without trying to get it. And this particular animal is, we sell registered cormos, and we also sell colored crossbreds because there is a market for colored fine wool. Well, there's only a handful of naturally colored fine wools in the world. CVMs are one, and Bond are the other one. And, well, there's almost none of them in the United States because we can't import them. So we've been kind of attempting our own breeding program, and this is a fleece from one of those. I'm not... Me click or him click? Ah, there we go. This is just to show what life is like. Most breeds of sheep you can only shear one time a year. There are a few that you can do multiple times. And this is the big event of our year. Just a shot from this past year's shearing day. Shearing is coming up for us in 5 weeks. It's a big deal. I could not find a picture that showed what our yearly output was without having this, and this is not meant at all as a sale gimmick or to announce it. I just needed a shot to tell you at the end of shearing day, I have a mountain of fleeces that are prepped and ready for sale. It fills 1/2 of my garage. And no, I am not a good photographer, but my friend is a really good photographer. So there's a couple of shots that she took of our sheep. And this, I could point out to you which one is which breed, but this is what our naked kids look like. And this is a little later in the year. We were rounding them up to do some weaning. So this is a shot of our ewe flock. If I had a pointer on my finger. That one right there is a purebred cormo. Actually, she's a purebred cormo, and these coloreds, she's a purebred, and these are our colored crossbreds. Oh, there is? Ah, that one's cormo. That one's cormo. These guys right here are the colored crossbreds. This is actually a crossbred because I can tell. I can tell by the black nose. That one's a purebred, that one's purebred, that one's purebred, that's a crossbred, that one's a crossbred. I think that was it. At the moment, there are, yeah. At the moment, there's 27 in my flock, and about the same in my friend's flock, but I never get rid of anybody. So I happen to have a wether that I have no idea why he's still alive. I have 4 ewes that are retired. Well, they give me wool. They don't give me babies, but they give me wool. So I have a good sized flock, but I don't have very many producers because they don't go anyplace unless I sell them to a good home. That's one of the reasons I'm not making much money.
Everybody's nervous about being on the spot. Okay, yes, we'll take care of it. All right.
You can use the clip.
All right, I can use it. You can do that.
My name's Gina. This is my husband, Garrett Fickle. And we are owners of Munchers on Hooves. We are going into our 4th year, and we rent goats. And, oh, that's your line. We are based in Coldwater, Michigan, which is about 16 miles north of the Indiana-Michigan line. We have close to 100 head of goats. We also keep goats at my mom and dad's, which live in Petersburg, Michigan, which is over in Monroe County on the east side of the state. And basically come summertime, we don't really have any goats on our property because everybody's busy working. So go ahead and click. So this is Garrett out back on our property. This is spring last year. We start off with having the goats in the electric fence. They do have to learn what the electric woven fence is, so we don't have any issues with goats getting caught in the fence. Once in a while we get goats that don't learn it and they get fired, unfortunately. So this is winter time at our house. We got Lily and New Billy and Sue and all them getting fat on hay. They like wintertime because they can sit and eat and not walk around and eat all day. Yeah. This is what we refer to as the baby ward. We built this last year. It's actually a carport that we ended up putting treated lumber on it, and we have the plexiglass on the top, which actually helps warm our baby ward up when the sun is out in the winter time. So it usually runs about 20 degrees warmer in there in the winter than in a normal barn, and it works really good. It really helps us when they give birth and stuff, that we don't have problems with frostbite and stuff like that. And Bubba sitting on his butt. Bubba is his buddy. He's on crew 1, and Sissy, his half-sister, is sitting on her butt in the hut. Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm going to let you do some talking now.
This one here is in Ann Arbor. When I set up a fence, I got to cut a path, and I had to cut through this stuff, part of it. It took me about 3 hours. When the goats get done, that was what it looked like. It took them, that particular site, we set up 400 foot of fence. They were done in about 2 days with that. That was 10 goats. When the goats get done, you still have to go in, you know, if you want all this removed, you still got to remove it. If I could teach them how to eat the wood, be a beaver, I'd have a house in Hawaii or something. But I haven't quite figured out how to get them to do that yet. So what we got going on there? Okay. Okay, CTS Communications, it's a business there in Coldwater. They do fiber optics, not Coldwater, Galesburg. They do fiber optics. This hill wasn't too bad, but you see the goats cleaned up what was there. That's more or less one of the places that want goats for their employees. So they would actually leave the building because they were sitting inside too much. So they brought the goats in, and we left them treats, and the goats and the people get to mingle all day long. Their customers actually go out and pet the goats and try out the electric fence. So,
They did say it helps their employees
this here is also one of our before and afters. This was in Richland. This was actually quite a big setup we did. I actually had about 600-700 foot of fence set up for 10 goats. That actually is a little bit too big, because what happens then is they tend to stay in the front, so then you got to go and cut the pen in half and force them, because like I said earlier, they like to be where it's bright, and if they end up having it too thick and too dark, they won't go in there. So you got to kind of force them into that area. And then there's another before and after. It was in Ann Arbor. Okay, Kalamazoo. Oh. Well, those are before. I don't know if we got an answer on it. Okay. That was up in Croydon, Michigan. We had just dropped them off. By the time we left there wasn't, in about 2 hours, that was 400 foot of fence. There was not a single maple or oak leaf left in that fence. That was all I had in there to eat. That and there was some poison ivy. So if you get poison ivy and they are on their job site, don't touch them. Their oil from the poison ivy and stuff you will catch it. Unfortunately, so far this year, I have not or in the last 4 years, I haven't got it. This year, probably my year I get it. I don't have to retire from it. And there's just them at work. Got Bubba's up there. That's what we use for shelter. We just put a tarp up. 90% of the time, they don't even use it. If it's pouring down rain, they might go underneath it. Otherwise, they just keep up sitting out there eating. Yeah.
So if you guys didn't catch it earlier, I'm also the Ag and Natural Resource Educator with Purdue Extension up in DeKalb County. So the goats are kind of it depends on the day. Could be my first job or my second job. So I married into goats. My husband and I got married 7 years ago. Prior to that, he had a goat dairy with his first wife. At that time, he was milking 80 to 100 heads of goats. So when he got a divorce, he had to get out of it. I told him when we got married that he had a goat quota of no more than 20 on the farm. This morning when I left, I think we're up to about 150 with kids this year. So I may have helped that out about 4 years ago. Started buying some registered La Mancha goats to show, and it just kind of expanded from there. So like I said, I kind of married into goats. It's kind of become my thing now. My husband grew up with goats. He's raised goats since he was about 2 years old. So it's been a part of everything that he's done. So for us, we currently live on just 6 acres. We have, with new land that we have rented this year, about 100 acres in hay that we make every year. So it's just trying to find another avenue for all these goats that we have on our property. So we typically do 4-H sales. So we do both boar and dairy wethers for 4-H kids. Our dairy side of it has really started to pick up the last couple of years. Last year alone, I think we had 3 county fair grand champions, 3 or 4 reserve grands. I think almost everybody else was at least in the top 2 or 3 in their classes. So our dairy wether side of it is starting to really pick up for market or for 4-H animals. The boar side, we're getting there, but we aren't using the $1,000, $5,000 bucks, things like that. We're just managing with what we have and still doing okay. So we do milk our dairy goats, but we use that milk for feeding dairy calves. So we'll get those in, and I like to get them on buckets as quick as possible because it makes my life easier. I can just throw the bucket in the pen and walk away. So we use the milk for that. Did kind of just some personal cheese and stuff like that last year. I now can't make lasagna without making my own ricotta. So I've ruined that for all winter when we were out of production. But so we do a little bit of that, and then on the meat side of it, started selling goat or 2 here or there the last few years. Last year we were trying to figure out what we were going to do with a couple of caldos that we had that weren't quite what we'd want to send to market, but wanted to at least get something out of them. So another friend of ours suggested getting into goat bratwursts.
It's kind of something a little bit different, different product from not just having your regular roast steaks, things like that, having a little bit different product. So we started with that last spring. I think it was last spring. Or two springs ago. That's when we picked up running. 2 springs ago. So I had a couple of caldos that we just took to our local butcher that we normally send our steers and our hogs to. We were impressed with the flavors that we got back. So at that point in time, we tried just plain to see if we could really have, I guess you could say, a goaty taste to it at all. So we tried plain, we tried Polish, and I think we tried mushroom and Swiss that time maybe, or green pepper, one of those two. We had great reviews come back. When people heard we were going to try goat brats, I think we sold out of those 2 doughs we made into brats. I think we sold out in a very short amount of time. Since then, we have another friend of ours that was a USDA meat inspector, so he has his own processing facility, so it's kind of nice. So he's kind of worked with us to kind of develop and try different flavors. Currently, my husband and I usually have different tastes, but our current favorite flavor is a sun-dried tomato, garlic, and herb goat brat. Really good. And so it's been a developing market. At this point, we get $7 a package for our brats, and there are 4 brats in that package. So we figure if we get 40 to 50 pounds of brats out of 1 goat, when you're looking at an older doe that we culled, we're looking at $350 for that goat. Pretty good return versus sending her. Granted, goat and sheep market's better than about anything else right now, but we still are not going to get that out of her when if we were to sell her to the sale barn. That's kind of what we were doing. Right now we're getting kind of pre-flavors chosen for this year's batch, or a couple batches of goats. So we're going to try some different flavors this time around, maybe doing like a mango habanero, or apple maple, or some like taco cheddar or something like that. So it's kind of fun playing with the different flavors to see how they play off of the goat flavor. So
So the name of our business is Caprini Creamery, baby goat in Italian. You can find us, The Pitch, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Look up Caprini, C-A-P-R-I-N-I, and you can follow our farm, see the baby goats, all that good stuff. 12 years ago, in January, Christy Kickley, my wife, our daughter Jessica, and I bought 57 acres cornfield, built a farm from scratch, built a FDA and Indiana State Board of Health licensed dairy and cheese processing plant. We currently are milking 80 goats twice a day out of a herd of about 250, producing 300 to 400 pounds of goat cheese a week. And my wife has left her job. She was a scientist at Eli Lilly, very lucrative job, by the way, and very scary situation last year when she decided she was going to pack it in and just come work on the farm. But we did very, very well this last year. We're continuing to grow all the time. But with the help of people like Robert Zupanzik, who has a white shirt on, and he'll wave like this, one of our grazing specialists here in Indiana, we designed a grazing system, literally built the farm from scratch. I put in every fence post. Christy designed the dairy. The reason he said something about the wipe-off board, we talk about value added. When Christy and I looked at business models, we had 2 goats and 2 llamas. When we first got them, I got poop on my hands and I threw up. Okay? Now I have to go through a sniff test or some sort of visual test because I'm carrying it with me off the farm generally. So things change. Things change as we grow. And the really interesting thing that I want to show you guys is why we do it, why we chose value added. Why don't we raise 250 goats and sell goats? And $350 is great. One of our dairy goats, small Nigerian dairy goat, will generate $1,000 in cheese a year. We milk them for 6 to 8 years. That's a $6,000 to $8,000 goat. It's kidding season on our farm. Kidding season is nervous time on our farm, because I've got a $6,000 to $8,000 goat delivering babies that could deliver 2 $6,000 to $8,000 kids. So I'm going to show you some numbers when Mark lets me get over and get on the wipe-off board of why we do what we do. Because at $350 a head, we wouldn't be making the money we are now. We are dairy people. We work every day. We work every day, twice a day. So I started at 2 o'clock this morning delivering kids, was in the milking parlor by 4 o'clock. I will be home by, hopefully, if everything goes well, 5:30, 6 o'clock, finish milking with Christy. We'll check for kids, see if we have to deliver any babies, and we'll put everybody to bed in the barn about 8:30, and then it's going to start all over again tomorrow, every day. So we do have a different lifestyle. We love it, or we wouldn't be doing it. But I know when we talk about value added, I'll show you some numbers that will kind of enlighten you on why we do what we do. Nigerian dwarfs and Oberhaslis. The Nigerian dwarf goats give us a very high milk fat, not a lot of quantity, but the yield is very high. So for the milk that we're able to get out of these goats, we get a lot of cheese. It is also a very creamy European style cheese due to that high milk fat and high protein content. It separates us in the marketplace. Judy Shad, Capriole, everybody knows Capriole, goat milk stuff, places like that. They don't get that high milk fat generally year round. I was really impressed that the Jonas family is getting a very high milk fat, because it makes for some just incredible cheese. It separates us in the marketplace. So if you go to St. Elmo's, which everybody knows is a very high-end restaurant in Indianapolis, our cheese is on the menu. Harry and Izzy's, we ship to about 45 restaurants in Indianapolis. Generally, they're the $40 to $150 a plate restaurants. So for us, we're able to command a high price for our cheese, because it's not going on a $5 hamburger. It's going on to a $20 hamburger at Burger Study. So we targeted the market with the Nigerian dwarfs and the Oberhaslis due to the high milk fat. Christy, retired microbiologist from Eli Lilly, makes some really awesome cheese. And I managed to shovel enough manure and get enough goat's milk that we do okay. Yeah, Christy makes 15 different types of cheeses right now, all the way from Chev and Feta, which is our fresh cheeses, to some Bloomy Rinds, which is our brie style cheeses. She has 7 or 8 brie style cheeses that can age anywhere from 10 days to 21 days, depending on the style. And then if you walk into our aging rooms, we built these aging rooms in the back of her dairy. There's probably 300 wheels of cheese that will be ready. Some are ready right now. I get to take a new cheese to the market tomorrow. For me, I like the cheese. It's a good cheese, but I'll sell $500 of that cheese tomorrow, just easy. Within 3 hours, it'll all be gone. But there are cheeses in there that will age 60 days all the way up to 2 years. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, we make bad cheese, sure. No, that happens, and that's the science part. I mean, Christy has to try different things, because you read stuff in a book and it tells you to do something, or you go and take a class, but until you get into your own conditions, your own bacterias, your own milk, there's so many variables on the farm. Fortunately, Christy has a PhD, like I said, and I'll say it probably 100 times, in microbiology. We have records that would drive you insane. And granted, we have to keep records for the FDA and the Indiana Board of Animal Health Dairy Division, but she has detailed records on batches, what time of year they were made, what kind of hay they were eating, what the protein and fat content was of the milk before it went into the pasteurizer, So it's a very detailed operation. Well, our failures are different. It's generally not in the fresh cheeses because we've designed the farm with Robert's help and a lot of the things. The hay that we feed, the grass that they eat, the grains that we feed, they're all custom. They're all from our farm with the exception of the textured grain mix that we buy special from Umbarger Feeds in Bargersville. So our feeds are the same year round. So that is a constant. We never ever feed them a silage that would throw off the flavor of a cheese. Yes, it'll, and the neat thing about our milk and the neat thing about goat milk stuff, it doesn't have that goaty taste. So we do good things in the milking parlor, in the milk house, the way we refrigerate our milk, in the processing facility, the way we process our milk. It doesn't accumulate the bacterias and things that will pick up those tastes that people will always go, oh, that was goaty. And I'm like, yes, it was. Try our cheese. And then they try it and they're like, whoa, what happened? And it's like, we're good at what we do and we have to be. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 No, and Christy, once again, every batch of milk, so 52-gallon bulk tank that's going to go over to the pasteurizer, one of the first things she does is draws a sample and tastes it. And she has a knack for that sort of stuff, and she knows. And then she pulls within that sample, she'll do a fat and protein content. And then she'll do the antibiotic testing because we're required by law to do the antibiotic testing. And there's all these things that we have to do before anything ever happens.
Back to Ruth. I'm going to hit you guys with a why question next. Why in the world are you doing this stuff? So Ruth, can you tell me why you just, what? So I'm sure you're an old farm girl, came from many years, or young farm girl, going back for many years, all that kind of stuff. I know I'm wrong.
He's wanting me to tell you my story. No, I am a city girl. I grew up in the suburbs, and I am an accidental shepherdess. My dad was a vet. I grew up with cats and dogs. Always wanted a horse. Well, I went out into the wide world and made friends in the workplace. Next thing I know, my best friend says, you need a sheep. I do? Yes, you need a sheep. Well, I had a sheep. Well, now that one sheep has turned into an entire flock, and I am no longer a city girl. I now live on a small farm, and my life has changed. It's twice a day, all year round, out there to take care of the stock, and I would not trade it for anything. I will stay there until my bones are no longer able to keep taking care of my beasties. I fell in love with sheep. Accident. No, I did not plan anything. The sheep that my friend talked me into are the ones that I still have 20-some years later. I accidentally ended up with a Cormo, and I love them. And as I have learned more about meat sheep, never. I love my wool sheep. They're a totally different critter. They're wonderful to live with. Yes, sheep are strange creatures. They're wonderful. The difference between a dog and a cat. Are you a dog person or are you a cat person? Are you a sheep person or a goat person? I'm a sheep person and I'm going to stay that way.
Well, we ended up kind of like her, just started out with a couple. I actually came off a dairy farm, raising cows. And my dad and I sold our farm few years prior to me meeting her. But when I met her, she had, what, 3 goats? And now we have, like I said, almost 100 of them. But, you know, we were sitting there just kind of figuring out, what are we going to do with all these guys? They're kind of like costing money now. Like everybody, you know, you get them and you don't want to get rid of them. So next thing you know, you got baby. Last year we had 27 kids born. We did sell the bucklings off. You do got a couple that you get attached to, so they end up becoming wethers and are sticking around. They eat, so it works. And it's something different. In the state of Michigan, it's not really heard of a lot. There was a few people that tried it. We tried to contact them. They're no longer in business. They do it out west, real heavy. We can't quite charge what they do out west, but we charge $9 a day per goat. You know, that's when you start running 60 of them at a time. You know, you're not doing too bad, but you gotta tweak, you know, how you do your fuels and all that kind of thing. So it's been fun. Educating people on the goat. That's another whole new subject.
Kind of the way when we started doing this, one night I'm on the computer, and of course wife's getting in trouble on the computer, and 11:30 at night I'm like, honey, wake up. And he's like, what? I says, what do you think about renting goats out? He goes, you're nuts. So I did a little more research and convinced him if we could make it work, he'd be in with it, and so he was, and that's how we ended up getting into it.
Well, he had the initial thought. So the reason why we have expanded so much, we'll put it that way, is at that time I didn't just want goats kind of sitting around doing, you know, not quite nothing, but I wanted more out of them. So for me, we hadn't had any, it is just a piece of paper, we didn't have any registered stock at the time. Found a really good deal on some does over by Walkerton. Decided to go for it. All of them were papered. I'm like, let's just get them and try something else. So American Dairy Goat Association has, within an hour and a half of our home, we can usually do about 9 sanctioned shows a year. It's just kind of fun. It's a different community. Something that we just wanted to get into and just kind of meet new people, I guess you'd say. So that's kind of how we got started, was just kind of meeting new people in the area. We've got some really close-knit friends now. Actually, we have a show we're going to over Father's Day weekend where there's a group of 4 guys, including my husband, that somehow my husband opened his mouth and they're supposed to all wear kilts. I don't know how that got started, but that's just kind of the group of people we've met through there. They're interesting at times. But so that's kind of how we got kind of expanded to where we are, is just kind of starting to gather some new genetics. That's what, with the registered stock, we actually started looking at genetics, kind of what our goats were doing versus what they could be doing. So that's kind of a nice thing about American Dairy Goat Association and Boer goats. Not so much on the Boer goat side, but they're working on it, is having those records, having those performance records, knowing what lineage you're getting into, knowing where you want to improve your stock. So right now we're not doing too bad at shows. Last year we actually beat a lady that I don't know how many national champions she has in her barn. We beat her with one of our young kids. That was a pretty good day. But we know where those little niches are where we need to make those improvements. Overall, mammary systems, things like that, milk production, we're doing okay. For what we are doing, we're getting out what we need. If we are to go to kind of full-scale dairy production, we'll need to look at maybe tweaking the genetics a little bit there. But kind of looking at actually getting something for our money for what we're doing, looking at those genetics and improving them is kind of why we expanded.
I'm ready. We use 2 words on our farm, my daughter and I. We were bamboozled and hoodwinked into this, and that's sometimes it feels that way. But you guys want to know about value added, which is why I'm assuming you came to the value added talk. So we milk, I made notes so I could be accurate. And throw a pen on the floor, sorry, thank you. This whole two-handed thing, it's kind of hard for me. So we milk 80 goats twice a day. Oh, I'm all right. Our goats don't produce a lot of milk. It's a very high quality milk. So it's a high protein, high fat milk. So we only get 20 gallons of milk a day on average. Now, this is all averages. I'm not sharing my tax returns with you. I mean, this is on average. This is what Christy and I talk about when we're in the milking parlor. We throw numbers and we're on the calculator just bouncing stuff across each other. So 20 gallons a day, 8.6 pounds per gallon. So we're getting 172 pounds of milk a day, which is nothing. If you were in the cow business, you would go, okay, that doesn't get me out of bed in the morning. So we're going to dry that cow off and off we go. For us, we get in cheese a 25% yield from that milk. And it actually is higher than that. I'm just kind of skewing low for everybody here today. So we get 43 pounds of cheese. How's that spelling? We're just filling everything in. 43 pounds of cheese a day on average. Okay? 43 pounds. We get an average, we are a premium cheese. We get $12 a pound for our cheese. That's wholesale, retail. That's kind of our ballpark right in the middle for us. Our retail for our fresh cheeses is $16. For our aged cheeses is $20 to $30 a pound. On the wholesale side, it can be in that $8.80 to $11 range, depending on who we're selling to, what the quantity is. We have some distributors that move our cheese. I'll deliver 300 pounds of cheese a week to Delco Foods. That'll go out to restaurants and places like that. Delco needs to make money. Restaurants need to make money. Mike and Christy needs to make money. So we try to be competitive on the wholesale side. So we've got 43 pounds of cheese at 12 bucks. That's $516 a day times 365 days. We can generate with those 80 goats $188,340 in sales a year. Almost $200,000 out of 80 goats. Pretty doggone good. That's okay. Uh-huh. So here we go. You ready?
That looks really good.
It does.
What I really want to do is not just the cost, but you pay yourself.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. We have 401k.
No, I'm not going to.
No. I'm just saying. No, we do. We're proud of this. We pull a salary, both of us do. I have an accountant that. No. Our accountant insists that we pay ourselves because we would much rather pay ourselves and pay taxes than pay Uncle Sam outright. No. And I wrote down, and I called Christy and just had her look at some numbers for me real quick. Our feed and bedding costs last year were $28,000. Our mortgage, I know, is $24,000. So, there's 50 grand right there off the top. There's 130 left over. We've already taken care of our main expenses. Now we're talking insurance and taxes. Even if we eat up another 50,000, and we're moving closer and closer to where we're not paying ourselves. We have just a little bit of part-time help. We spent 10 grand last year on part-time help. So we easily pay each other a nice salary every month. And like I said, our accountant makes us do that so that we're distributing the money, taking the costs, taking the write-offs that we can take and things like that. The proudest thing right now for Christy and I, we're going to pay this doggone thing off this year. And from that point on, we actually loaned ourselves money, always lived within our means, always saved money. We have just this little bit of loan that Mike and Christy took it out of their savings account that we're going to pay ourselves back next year. So we're not only paying ourselves a salary, but we're making money, and we could hire more people. That's our next goal. Is we're looking at a new distributor out of Louisville, Kentucky, that's going to move us into the Ohio and Tennessee market. They're going to increase our sales a whole bunch more. I have 250 goats on the property. I'm already feeding them at $28,000. I'm not going to have any additional feed costs. I'm going to have additional labor costs in milking and making cheese. So now, instead of having this big cost factor as we increase sales, I'm increasing sales and the costs are only going up gradually. So we're making more money. And I'm not saying we're going to be gazillionaires doing this, because I do work 365 days a year. Like 364, I go to the race, the Indy 500, I drink a year's worth of beer in one day, and I get it all over with, and then I'm back to work on Monday. But no, when Christy and I first started this, and we first started talking about, we had 2 goats and 2 llamas. Can we do this as a business? Well, sure, we can raise llamas and sell llamas. Well, llamas are $500 a head, so we got to raise a lot of llamas. Or let's take that 20 gallons and let's sell fluid milk. It's only like $3 a gallon. So now we're only making $60 a day. Now I've got to milk 800 goats. Yeah, I'm milking 800 goats. No, I mean, then it becomes a whole other operation. You've got to have people on hand. Jim can tell you better than anybody. There's got to be people that can do things and be in the right places at the right time. And Christy and I, right now, it's a 2-person operation with about 10 to 15 hours of part-time help a week. And it's more of a part-time. McKenna's coming this afternoon because Christy's got a long day and she's going to need help in the milking parlor. McKenna will come tomorrow. She's a vet science student in Newcastle, Indiana. And she's going to help Christy microchip, trim hooves, do all kinds of husbandry tomorrow. In a perfect world, this 16-year-old vet science student is going to deliver her first kids tomorrow. So we bring in students to help us on the farm with the husbandry part, but we don't trust anybody really to do the milking or the cheese making other than the 2 of us. Yes? Yep. And we do. We never do. We expand. We're milking 80 goats right now. We've got 50 of them that are due to have babies within the next 8 weeks. So we can either dry off some goats and reduce that 80 to 60 and go up to 110. We could go up to 130. We have flexibility there depending on what the market is going to ask us to do. We do not. We do equipment. We're kind of low tech. No, we're low tech. We use an old Surge bucket milker, and this is why. Did I tell you she's a PhD in microbiology? We hand pour the milk. We hand filter the milk. Christy has done the science. The more you agitate the milk, you change the fatty acids in the milk, you change the flavor of the cheese. We have a unique product that sells really well in a lot of unique places for a high dollar. We don't want to screw with that, so we hand pour. So we are labor intensive, but it comes out in the end product. We can command a $12 average price a pound for our cheese. Yeah, when we got into this, Christy, we're young. I mean, we're not even in our 60s yet. So we're looking at this as a 20-year project. Who wants to struggle and beat their heads against the wall for 20 years and not make money? I mean, that's crazy to me. So we wanted to do this and do it as a living. And we work hard, but you know what? Christy will text me, and it was just funny. She's like, missed you for lunch today. Did you have a good lunch? Because at 11, between 11 and 12, one of us texts the other and says, hey, what do you want for lunch? And if we're both on the farm, we meet at the house, we have lunch, we sit down, we talk about anything but farming. We could talk about politics and probably talk all the rest of the day. But we talk and just have fun together. We like being in the parlor together. So we like what we're doing. The one area that I'm never into unless a machine breaks down is the make room where the cheese is made and the aging room. It says, please do not enter. It should just say, Mike, please do not enter. And because I'm dirty, I mean, Christy, there is a changing room, a clean room. She is in, if you look at our, once again, the plug for the social media, you'll see pictures of Christy in scrubs, head to toe. I mean, it's a very clean area, and it pays off in the cheese. It's a business to us. We love our goats. Our does retire. If you've made us $8,000, we have designed a rotational grazing program. We have enough grass and hay. You retire on the farm. You're born and you're buried on our farm. And we tell people that with pride. Because Nicole, this 14-year-old Oberhausley doe that comes and digs in my pocket for a little bit of granola bar every morning at 4 o'clock, is my buddy. And if I talk more, I'll start to tear up. And when she passes away, it'll be a very sad day. But Nicole was one of our foundation Oberhausleys. We could not do this without Nicole. So Nicole has earned retirement on our farm. So we're different in a lot of ways. And we designed everything. We thought about this before we did it. And that's what I encourage you guys to do. If you're looking at a business model and you're looking to do something, think it through, and don't think you're overthinking, because you're not. Think it through, run the numbers. Do I really want to do this? Can I make money doing this? You know, and just work your way through it. Sorry. I can dominate, I'm sorry.
I'm going to go back to Ruth for a little bit here. And the thing I'm going to ask Ruth, so the thing I'm going to ask Ruth is we're into this production of making this wool. What is our market for that wool? And how do you foresee that market in the future? Let's think about it a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, that's actually kind of hard. When you talk about the market for wool, you need to think in terms of, are we talking about the market in the Midwest, Indiana? Or are you talking about a national market? Are you talking about a commercial market? Or are you talking about more of a niche market? Here in Indiana, we do not have a fiber industry. We do not have a fiber market. It just isn't there. Yes, as an industry, we could do a whole bunch more. For me, because I work full-time off the farm, in terms of fiber animals, my flock of 27 is quite small. So individually, personally, what I do with my wool, I sell it raw. Not very many people do that, and that's actually our niche, is selling it raw. No, I'm not making much money, but I'm turning it around fast. I'm getting it back off of my property, and I can move on to taking care of my livestock. We go to one sale a year, where I will sell 75% of my production from that year. The picture was up there. It's the Putnam County Greencastle, the fiber event. The remainder of my sales are established relationships. We tried a website, didn't work for us. We've tried Facebook. Facebook is kind of working, but I do not put the effort into marketing. If I put effort into marketing, I could sell more. But if I sold more, I would need to raise more sheep. I'm at my max on that already. Where the difference is between Indiana, the Midwest, and the coasts is you probably passed a dozen or more farms that had sheep on your way here. Everybody has sheep in Indiana. So anyone who wants wool is probably getting it from the meat guy next door who's throwing it away. Why would they pay me $12 a pound for my purebred animals when they can get the other stuff from the guy next door? In California, the head of our associations in California, his mediocre wool is going for $50 a pound. Nobody raises sheep in California. Nobody raises sheep on the East Coast. The difference is where we are. Same thing with the livestock themselves. I'm selling purebred registered animals. You can sell one for $750 in California. But I can get something off of Craigslist, and that's what they'll do. Usually when I am selling my purebred livestock, they're coming from 1, 2, 3, 4 states away because they know what they want. So no, I'm not making money. From a marketing standpoint, if I put the effort and time into value added, like some of our other panelists have, yeah, I can make more money. And that's a consideration for those of you who are out here listening. Are you interested in being here, listening, learning, because you love the animal, and you got to figure out a way to keep the animal, which we've also heard here also, or is this your plan to be a business? If you want it to be a business, you're going to have to put 12 hours a day into it. If you're doing it because you love the livestock or love the lifestyle, you have to figure out, how can I break even? And it's taken me a long time to get there. I break even. I could spend the time to come up with something totally different. There are some other things out there. But for me, the market's not here in Indiana. I'm a Hoosier. I love my sheep. I'm staying here and breaking even. Oh, yes. Yes, there are quite a few options. It's not an easy answer though, because it really makes a difference what kind of fiber you're producing. Is that mill good at that type of fiber? I have had to play with the different mills to find mills that can handle my fleeces. I have one mill that does really good with my crossbreds, but I finally found a mill that does better with my purebreds. So that's a yes and no. You're going to have to waste some fleeces working with the different mills until you find one. I do, but it's not really value added, because once you can add, okay, if I had sold this fleece, this is its value. Here's what it cost me to ship it to the mill, and post rates just went up. Here's what the mill is charging me, and with wool, you're going to get 50% or less back. You start, yeah. You're doing good if you get 50% of it back. You start adding that all up, folks aren't going to pay for it. I add about 10% profit off of my costs on the roving. And I do it specifically not because that's where the money is. And actually, most people don't. If I really wanted to be value add, I would dye it and then have it processed, because people like color. There just aren't, and it's cyclical. There will be years everyone wants natural colors. They want the grays and browns. Next year, everyone wants blue and purple. Go figure. But you never know what the cycle is going to hit you. For me, I use it as a hook. I want them to take some of my roving or comb top home, work with it and say, ooh, I like this. Come back to me next year and buy a fleece and go do their own thing with it. So that's a hook for me. It's not really my value added because the profit is not there. There's a yes, wool sheep are very good for clearing. Well, there's your classic Angora goat, the long-haired goat. You got to be really careful when you get into that because you have to watch your genetics. Angora goats are wonderful. Their very first shearing or clipping. As they age, though, they get really coarse, and it's not a particularly pleasant fiber. Then you're talking about mohair. But if you're a good breeder, you watch your genetics, it is possible. There are some lines of Angora goats or mohair goats out there that stay fine and will keep your value. But most of those goats get really coarse really fast, and it's not a pleasant fiber.
Work for your money here. Getting paid a lot of. If you feel like you need to go right ahead. But I think we got a good conversation going on here, so we're going to keep going with that. So I'm going to ask you guys, the pickles here, money. What money is for this? How do we advertise first off, and then how do we go from there?
Making money. We're still trying to figure that one out. No. With us going in our 4th year, we're really hoping that we got a lot of our expenses down. The first year, a lot of our expenses, we had to get fencing. We had to get fence chargers. Fencing for 100 foot of the fence that we use is 4 foot. Electric netting, it's $175 a section. When you do just under a quarter of an acre, it's 400 foot. When you got to rotate your goats, and you set up another pen, you're looking at least you got to have 800 foot of fence plus a solar charger. Solar charger is about $365. So you got to remember when you start off, you got to put out a lot of money, unfortunately. Our first year we had 3 road crews. We had 3 road crews. The reason why we had so many road crews, we're new. Nobody in Michigan knows this at all, hardly. It goes by word of mouth. It goes by educating. You have to educate. In the business that we do, you have to educate people. We go through this all the time. People's like, you got goats. They eat everything. Well, they don't eat everything. They don't understand the concept. So we had 3 road crews, 10 goats per crew. So we have 3 job sites we're working at one time. We have gas expenses. Yep, it's eats your money. But when you're trying to build a business, you're trying to get out there, you can focus on one area, but you can't get your business out there as much to try to get people to understand you more. So we got lucky our first year. I called a whole bunch of different people. Got a lot of hang-ups, a lot of laughs. You're nuts. I called Western Michigan University. I seen they did a lot of invasive plant removal for a lot of their parks. I called up there. I figured it's going to be like everything else. They're going to laugh. They ain't going to call me back. 2 days later, I had a guy call me back, Nick. He seen the same thing as what we did. He wanted to try it. He wanted to try something new. He wanted to get this into education. They had new people there on a board. Went there for a meeting. They sent us all this paperwork. How many times did we set the paperwork down? It was a lot. It was thick. The stuff they asked for was insane. We couldn't come up with all they wanted. We did a lot of our own vet work. We got a good working relationship with our vets. So we ended up, we weren't going to do it. They called back. You know, we really want you guys to come. Set up a meeting. Okay? We both worked full time at the time. We had a job that was 3 hours away. I had to move fence. I left 5 o'clock that morning. I had a meeting at 10:30. I left the job site for moving fence. I was soaking wet with rainwater, playing in snails. I've never seen so many snails on leaves in my life. We were over by Lake Michigan. I was running late. I was at the point where I'm like, I just might as well just cancel. I ain't going to get nowhere. They're going to laugh at me. I called up, told them I was running late. No problem, we'll wait. My hair was a mess. I walked in there, had my head held high, and I told myself, you know what? This is going to be a waste of time, but I'm going to do it because I'm going to do it. I walked in there and introduced myself and told them I'm sorry for what I looked like. They said, well, if you walked in with a skirt and high heels, you know, we'd think something wasn't right. Went out there, talked to them, went out to the job site. We had a, 10-day trial for the goats, and we ended up getting the job for the following year. We had 14 acres. We made it in social media. They blew something way out of whack that was nothing dealing with it was, but it was advertising. You know, we wrote it out. We all laughed about it. And we got a lot of advertising with it. And we ended up, we watched as we were there for them 14 weeks. We watched how goats can bring people together, how students looked at them goats as family. They had orientation going on, and the students made a point to stop and let the people know that we're going to come there for being students for that following year, about how proud they were with them goats. And to be out there and see that, it was just like, wow. So
we even had another little incident while we were there. If you look up goats versus union, and we didn't know about it. We were sitting there one night watching TV. About 11 o'clock, her mom and dad texted us, and we're on the Detroit News. Heck, did we make the Detroit News? We're not even nowhere near Detroit. Well, the union filed the grievance against the goats.
didn't know nothing about it.
They were taking up union jobs. We didn't know about it. They never addressed us about it.
And to this day, we've never been addressed.
Never been addressed about it. But when it hit media, we ended up selling T-shirts and all kinds of stuff. And so that's how we were known there for a while, as the Union Busters. You know, you go somewhere, say, hey, I've heard of you, and I'm like, let me guess, Union. You're like, yeah, you know. So there for a while, you know, once that kind of cooled off, it wasn't so bad, but that actually helped boost our sales too, or our customer base, because that's how people were hearing about us because of the all that going on. So actually, in 4 years, we probably advertised 3 times, and that was in our local paper. And then, honestly, we've done 4 jobs in 4 years around our area. Everything else is Kalamazoo, Galesburg area, which is about an hour from us.
Where people have the
And
money.
that's
People do work a lot.
everybody up there. They're more, well, down our way, everybody's got an animal. But once you get, you know, we do a lot in the city. And it's just kind of something different, a little more, I guess, organic way. I don't know if that's not the term we're looking for.
Well, they would
Environmentally safe. So, yeah. Actually, we get customers that once they see what they're dealing with, they tell us to schedule us for next year. We've probably got 10, 15 customers that we just go back to. And now some of them original customers, they told us they're going to skip a couple years because nothing's really coming off. So far, they've done real good. It's kind of funny when you first get going in the season. It takes them a little bit to get back in the routine. But once they're in that routine, we can actually open up our horse trailer door, and it can be from this distance of this room from the gate, and they'll run to the trailer. we
Everybody's got their own opinion. We like our boar goats. They have a lot of personality, and we like our boars. Boars actually do have a higher parasite. They can get parasites a lot easier. But if you do what we do, our parasite is down to about 1% of that, because we're rotating. So every time that you're going someplace else, you're starting a new area. So you're not getting that parasite problem. Normally, parasites are a couple inches above the ground. Goats don't go to the ground like sheep. So as long as you're rotating your pastures, you're not going to have that issue. But on the other side, dairy goats, you're going to have more of your height than your boar goats, so they're going to be able to go up higher. Now, our goats, they work as teams. Some of them will get on the backs of other goats. So they will get on the backs and they will reach up. And when they go to push brush down, they've learned this too. You'll have one that'll get up on the sapling, start pushing on them, well, everybody else will come, and they'll all push that sapling down, and they'll just devour it. So they work as teams, and they're like people. If you get people that don't get along good on a job, you get poor production. We found this out when we first started. We went to the first job site. It was around the corner from us. Thank you very much it was. We had a goat named Ornery. We had 10 goats out there. They weren't eating. We couldn't figure out. People call us, said they just aren't eating. They go up to this corner. I got off work the one day. I went there. I sat there for 2 hours. She was what they would call a herd queen. She was boss. When she was done eating, she'd get all the rest of the 9, shove them up in this corner, make them stay in this corner while she laid there and chewed her cud. She got fired. Once we fired her and put another one in there, that crew went and did what they were supposed to do. So we learned that you have to get the personalities together. If you have personalities that conflict, they're not going to eat good. Crew 1's our top crew. Them guys, they can clean house. But crew 4, yeah, you got your younger ones. They're not quite as much into it. Personalities conflict. They don't produce as much for what they're supposed to. So they're like people. Unless it's sassafras. They love sassafras trees.
My goal is to reach Mackinac City, and I want to be above the bridge. Well, last year I made it as far as Charlevoix. It's kind of up in this area here. But we got a lot of leads. Supposedly we got 4 or 5 more jobs up in that area again next year, or actually this year. And then up in Cross Village, which is 30 miles from the bridge. Lately, the last few years, we tried to stay within an hour from the home. We were getting some big jobs up towards Grand Rapids and stuff, so we would drive up there, and that's a good 2.5 hours from us. But to go that far, we got to make sure it's going to be a big job and long term. One that I can actually go in and set up several pens, and then I actually have the owners then move the goats from one pen to the next. We put a water tank in each pen, a mineral bucket, so all they have to do is turn the charger off, and they do tend to forget to do that. They remember real fast. But you know, they turn the charger off, walk in, and I make one spot, so all I can do is open up one section. They open up, and the goat will just follow them right through. They know the procedure, they know what's going on. Most of them have done it long enough that we don't have any issues. Knock on wood, we've only ever had them get out once. And twice. One time a tree had fell on the fence, and they actually walked up the tree, ate all the leaves off, ate all the grass around the tree and all the leaves and laid right there by the tree. The homeowner son-in-law was supposed to check the fence that morning, and he didn't. So when he showed up, all he did was he walked over there, opened the gate up, they followed him in, he cut that tree off, they just went back to eating. They are a herd animal, so they do like to stick together, and they know that that fence is their safety zone. And so if they get too far from it, they usually don't get far from it if they've gotten out, even at home. I can open our gates up at home, they stay right in the yard. They know where their safety zones are at. That was actually all summer. We actually took them hay for them to feed. Actually we moved them in a couple different spots there. You know, they said they just called us up and they're like, you know, hey, we know you actually did work for us the first year. You know, the second year though, there's really nothing there because they went in and trimmed everything out when we got done. But the owners wanted them for employee morale, get them out of the business and actually come outside. So we let them interact. We took them treats so they could feed the goats treats, and they had hay there to eat. Yeah, and actually when we do a lot of jobs, we do a lot of lake sides because the goats can go on, you know, a pretty steep hill. What's kind of funny is that people are always worried about if the goat can get up and down that hill or not. And I look at them and I say, what about the guys that put the fence up? I got a 100-foot roll of fence in my arm, you know. They're like, oh, yeah. So, you know, everybody's always worried about the goats, but never the guy that's got to do the work. But we have never, to knock on wood, have ever had any predator problems. As long as your fence works, it's supposed to keep them out also. The only predator we've ever had get into our fence before was a human. And that's because I was working on the fence and I had it turned off, and that was when we went to college. And the goats also know that if there's a stranger around that enters their pen, I could hear these kids yelling, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And so I finally went up there to where they were at. And they were standing behind a tree, 3 of them, all huddled together. I had 4 goats surrounding them. Half of them didn't have horns, but they were just standing there staring at them. Them kids were, you know, like what you see on YouTube, you know, where they're going to attack you and everything. Apparently that's what they thought. So I kind of stood behind them for quite a while and watched them. Finally, I kind of went up there and scared them myself. Never seen them after that. So, but that's been our only predator, you can kind of say, that we've ever had, and it's ever entered the fence. We have found that during the wintertime, our boars handle it a lot better than the dairy goats. Now we do got some that, I mean, they get hit by a raindrop, they're gone. I mean, they just can't handle it. But then you get other ones, it can be a torrential downpour. They stand right there and eat. Same way with snow. You have a blizzard, and you have someone laying out there in the snow, and you're looking out after, and you think, oh great, man, you got a dead goat. Next thing you walk out there, you get them up, you know, to see, and they're just buried in the snow, and they just stand up, shake off, and go back to eating out of food. We think the boars are a little bit hardier than the dairy, and like I said, you know, it's opinion.
Okay, so the meat side of it was just kind of word of mouth, and that's basically what we do at this point. We do have a Facebook page that we've got a few sales from, things like that, but a lot of it's just word and taste of mouth. So people that have had the brats before or are interested in trying a different meat, like they say, goats, goat milk is about the most widely consumed milk in the world, and goat meat's pretty up there. It's very lean meat, so we actually do have to add some pork fat to our brats, just to get some of that juiciness to it. Otherwise, you wouldn't have that full juicy flavor. We don't add that much, but just enough to get that flavor burst to it. So for us, it's mostly word of mouth at this point. I don't think we could handle much more right now. So it's word of mouth. On the kids side, when we're selling market weathers, especially on the dairy weather side, it's performance from previous years. So we'll get 4-H families that'll say, hey, we saw that they raised these goats from you last year, do you have some available? So we'll get waiting lists a year in advance for kids that as soon as those 4-H kids get done showing, we'll say, hey, we want another goat next year. So I mean, that's kind of how we've gotten started on both those avenues. Yes. Yep. So that's one of the. So adding the pork fat. So that's one of the nice things about what we raise. We actually raise about 95% of all the meat that we consume. So we raise chickens, the beef, and then we also do pastured pork. So usually we will have a pig butchered. It's ready to go. So we kind of coordinate with our goat butchering a week or two in advance. So he has that pork fat ready to go. Unless I need it to make lard for my pies, then I'll take some of it back home. I will not make a pie crust without lard. Just my standards right now. But that's how we work it, is we work with another product that we make to then make those goat brats. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
No, it's not.
No, I just want to, okay, I'll just tell you the quick story. Traders Point Creamery, everybody heard of Traders Point Creamery in Zionsville. We were not open yet. And there's our pasteurizer cheese vat sitting there. Has to have probes in it. Traders Point's probe went out on their pasteurizer during an inspection. The Board of Health, which we had been working with, they're like, hey, why don't you call Caprini? They're not using theirs. They're not going to open for 4 weeks because you have to special order these probes. It takes about 10 days. They borrowed our probe, stayed in production. Jane and Fritz, the owners, Traders Point, as soon as you are making cheese, come see us. That's where our first cheese that Christy felt comfortable with went. And Jane and Fritz put it in their store. So here's Traders Point Creamery, some of the best cheese in the Midwest. And there's Caprini Creamery with these cute little packages right in their cheese case. And then we would go to, we just started going places. We went to Green Bean Delivery. Green Bean said, Matt was like, yes, we've been looking for a goat cheese. We have Judy, but you have feta. Nobody else makes goat cheese feta or makes goat feta cheese. And boom, we're in Green Bean. So everywhere we went to places, who carries your cheese? Traders Point Creamery does. Green Bean Delivery gave us instant credibility in the marketplace. And then as we grew, we got into the Patachu restaurant chain here in Indianapolis. Tyler Harold, the executive chef, really liked our cheese, put it in Public Greens. I'm at an Edible Indie photo shoot because they wanted to get all the farmers for Public Greens there. There was 30 farmers there. It's a fantastic picture. I'm holding a baby goat. Tiny gets loose in Broad Ripple, running the streets of Broad Ripple. There are people here from different businesses in Broad Ripple that will tell you the story of watching Mike chase a goat through Broad Ripple. Tiny runs out in front of a car. Car locks it up. Happens to be a very nice Mercedes four-wheel drive. Window goes down. I'm thinking, hey, here it comes. And the guy's like, hey, are you the goat cheese guy? And I'm like, yes, I am. Don't go anywhere. And it was Steve Goldman from Delco Foods. Delco Foods had talked to Christy years ago when we first started. And they said, when you're ready, we want to be your cheese supplier to restaurants. So Delco Foods is where I deliver 300 to 400 pounds of cheese a week. They have a sales staff of 20 across the region. Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, Kentucky, and they have placed us into restaurants. Christy goes in. If you were to call her, you were a mom and pop restaurant, and you're only going to buy a few pounds of our cheese a week, and you called Christy, Christy would make it a point to come visit you, try our cheeses, get to know you, tell you the story, and make sure that when you talk to her, you're a part of the Caprini Creamery family before you leave. Here's a good for instance. In this, I'm a salesperson, can you tell? I mean, this is, I can pitch. And that was my background in retail and things. Yesterday, I'm making a delivery at the Tyner Pond Market, which is a grocery store in Irvington. I'm talking to Mark, the manager of the market, and he's got this salamis laid out on a piece of paper with numbers on them. Like, hey, what are we trying? And it was salami from North Market in Columbus, Indiana. And North Market's a farmer's market similar to City Market here in Indianapolis. I go, I've had that salami. You got to try this, because my daughter goes to Ohio State, so I've eaten there. And this guy comes up and starts talking to us, and he's eating salami like he belongs there, and he walks away, and I'm like, Mark, who is that? Oh, that's the new executive chef for the Tyner Pond chain, so he's going to do all the mugs, Bona Station, Grigsby Station. Like, hey, Mark, I'm going to go get a business card. He's like, I'll introduce you. So immediately I sat down with Drew, and Christy is meeting with Drew on Monday of next week and taking cheese samples. And Drew has already had some of our cheese with Cluster Truck and Mesh and Union 50, which are restaurants he worked at before. And he's already jacked about selling our cheese. So Christy's going to go there, sample cheese. They're going to work on menu items. Christy gets to have fun, talk about menus and things like that. And then, boom, we'll start delivering direct to the Tyner Pond chain of restaurants. So we're all about, when I give talks to marketing people, connect the dots. You know, I know Mark. I've got a relationship with Mark that's the manager of Tyner Pond. He introduces me to the next guy. The next guy introduces us. Drew had our cheese at another restaurant. The reason we got into Patachu, another sous chef told Tyler about our cheese. So it's all about connecting those dots. We have spent zero money on advertising. Absolutely zero. Packaging, my wife designed the logo, designed the labels. All of our labels, I've said that, you know, we are the Indiana State Board of Animal Health Dairy Division. It's a mouthful. They really need to make it shorter. Comes in and does inspections. All of those labels have to be approved by them before we can slap it on a product and sell it to the public. Technically, we're FDA regulated by them. So if you're ever buying dairy, I always tell anybody I'm in this kind of area, when you look at a dairy product and it says 1-8 dash something on it, 1-8 is Indiana. Buy some local milk. We need to support these dairy farmers. So we have to have a number with our plant number on it. So all of that Christy took care of. And we did that all before we opened and sold the first cheese. So there was a lot of prep to get to where we're at. You had a question for me. We have a 32 by 56 barn, has a milking parlor, has a milk house with 2 refrigerated bulk tanks, chart recorders. Next door we have pasteurizer that also has chart recorders, probes, the whole 9 yards. We have aging rooms, barn. Now we did a lot of the work ourselves. So I did as much framing and things like that ourselves. And this was 7-8 years ago, $150,000 for just that building. And the equipment. Now, the pasteurizer cheese vat, it's really pretty, I love it. It's a $35,000 machine imported from the Netherlands. Yes, Bob White. We know, but they are a reputable dealer. If you're buying, you just got to do research and learn about the different brands. You're more than welcome to come to our dairy, and we'll show you. We have 2 different brands of bulk tanks. We would tell you about the pasteurizer cheese vat. Christy knows a ton of information on manufacturers. She visits as many dairies. We really want to go to Scottsburg, but we can never get down there and visit PJ and Jim. But that's where we sunk the most money. Well, the facility, the machinery in the facility. So we wanted bulk tanks. Christy's a scientist, so those bulk tanks had to be top notch. That pasteurizer cheese vat had to be the best that she could find in the size that she wanted. So yes, they did. Yes, we just didn't follow them. One dairy followed them. Judy Shad Capriole Dairy in southern Indiana has always been approved. But yeah, there was a lot of, it was the wild, wild west out there. And the one thing we did at the beginning, when it was flags on dirt, we had soil. I'm sorry, Robert. Flags on soil is, sorry, I just knew that was coming eventually. Flags on soil is the Board of Animal Health Dairy Division was on our property as a team, looking at the blueprints, what we were going to lay out, how we were going to do it. And then they came out quarterly or by phone call and would look at our progress and help us through the process. They probably saved us easily $10,000 to $20,000. No. Right. Exactly. How many A's is it? Is it all of our equipment has to be, is it 3A, 4A, something? There's an A thing in the pasteurized milk ordinance in the FDA. I should know that. I really should. I should know. I never know how many A's. I am horrible with acronyms and stuff like that. I'm just terrible. And we're running into, and I'm sure they are too, Jim, PJ Jonas, goat milk stuff in Scottsburg. Yes, that is them right there in the flesh. They're rock stars in our industry. They do way more stuff than I'll ever do. But no, and we're running into the Food Safety Modernization Act is changing some of the ways we're doing things. Fortunately for the dairy industry, I am your food safety representative for American Farm Bureau. I was just in Washington, D.C. last week doing some lobbying and talking to the FDA and USDA, more on produce because they've never been regulated before. But we were talking about dairy and some of the changes we have to make. Really, our changes are minor compared to the produce industry that's never been regulated. We have this thing called the Pasteurized Milk Ordinance from the FDA that we have to follow. It's about yay thick and it's so scientific I can't get by the first page. I need the microbiologist to go through that sort of stuff. And that's how we're regulated. Same with the meat. So the meat is either state inspected or USDA inspected in order to be sold to the public. Can't cross state lines unless it's USDA inspected. So there's all those regulations that you'll learn to follow as you grow a business. But you got to learn those up front because you got to build your facility to match those regulations. Yeah, yeah, we're very, no, we're very regulated. They can tell you, we have chart recorders that record pasteurization, air temperature, fluid temperature. They'll come in and they look at those span of times that you're at 145 and above, and they'll question, oh, I think you're 29 minutes on this, lot. And Christy will go, come on, that is 31. I mean, they're just, so they go through all kinds of stuff, just making sure that the food's safe for everybody. Yes. No. Okay. Well, no. Fortunately, Henry County, Indiana, has a pasture grass drill that you can rent. So we worked with Robert. Do you know? Well, there's all kinds of things Robert can teach you, but the one thing that I learned was you buy a grass mix. When you look at those percentages of the grass mix, that's not really what you get at the end of the day, because each one of them has a different germination rate. So we actually worked with Robert and had a custom mix made for our pastures. And Robert and Christy put in orchard grasses, clovers. We have a hayfield that has orchard grasses, clovers, and part of it's in alfalfa. She worked with Robert to learn about varieties, what does well in our soil. Robert was so funny. This was the funniest thing. He came out on the first time I met him, on the most crappy day in the world in the middle of winter. It's rainy, it's muddy. We're out there in a harvested soybean cornfield, mud all over the place. That guy has the biggest smile on his face that you've ever seen. He's like, oh, I'm just like out here playing in the mud. It's like, Mike, you know what kind of soil that is? And he's telling me. And he looked at the overhead maps of our soil and things and designed a system that fit our farm. And that is still USDA, yes? USDA grazing specialist. You have one for your region. They're there to help you. And Robert didn't cost me a dime. In fact, he took a look at what we were doing and got us involved in the EQUIP program, and we actually got some money, some cost share money from the government to help us with some things. So we did that. They designed the paddock system, the lanes, the watering system. All of this was designed on paper. And if you look, we have graph paper with everything laid out. And Christy said, here, Robert and I have got this figured out. Do you think you can build it? And I'm like, well, here we go. And I had never put a fence before. I didn't even know how to hook the hydraulics up on the tractor to run the drill. I thought a drill drilled little holes in the ground and dropped seed into them, until I saw the drill and saw, hey, look, it cuts a little wedge in the ground and drops seed in. So we were not farmers. Fortunately, now we are. I'm a forage farmer, a goat farmer, and a dairy farmer. But yeah, there's Purdue Extension. Roy Ballard was great. These guys have you been to my farm, Mark? I think they've all been to my farm. So Purdue Extension's been a great help. NRCS, Soil and Water Conservation. We pooled resources, which is why I take the time out of my day to come to these things. We could not have built our farm without the resources that we have here in Indiana. And you know what? People don't use them. I talk to these guys and they're like, oh, I wish, somebody, we want to do this, we want to do that. And they just can't, because there's just, people don't know they're there. Sorry. We do not, because it just wasn't cost effective, and to put in a bottling machine is not cost effective for us. They can tell you all about bottling. They are the only, Goat Milk Stuff is the only grade A goat dairy in Indiana selling fluid milk. We are, but we only make cheese. The only dairy in Indiana that sells grade A fluid milk is Goat Milk Stuff in Scottsburg, Indiana. And I will say that 5 times tomorrow at the farmer's market. We have a very, we were talking about this earlier, we are tunnel vision. Goat Milk Stuff does a great job. They have the staff. They have a lot of kids. They can do a lot of different things. Christy and I looked at our business model, And even when I'm tempted to, hey, you know, nobody grows rhubarb. Mike, we could put in an acre of rhubarb and make all this money. And people are like, oh, you should do that. It's like, no, we do cheese. We do cheese. We do cheese. Every day we do cheese. You're going to have to get IDEM involved. I believe it's IDEM. Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? And I live in a county, so I shouldn't bash my own county. We don't deal with our county inspectors because they have no jurisdiction over our dairy. They have none whatsoever, unless we put in where you sell food, you're a grocery, you sell the product off the farm, and we have purposely stayed away from that because we had a health inspector come by from the dairy once we were open and threatened to shut us down, at which time Christy immediately called the Board of Animal Health Dairy Division, and they called this young man and told him to stay off of our farm. Now, if you come to the farm, I'll sell you some cheese, but it's not like we're operating a store or anything like that. And if you're from the county council or somewhere important in our county, I will walk you out to the road and sell it to you on the road, because I can legally sell it to you on the road but not on our property. Just to prove a point, because that's kind of... Yes. And that's one of the first stops we made. When we bought the property, we bought it on a contingency that we could build a dairy on the property, at which point I went to the planning commission, I went to people that I needed to go to, and everybody's like, well, it's ag, sure you can build a dairy. And then we went to IDEM, we had so many soil samples taken for a septic system, so we have 2 different septic systems, one specifically designed for the dairy, it was about twice as much as a... Be careful on your volumes, and I don't know, I'm not going to tell you numbers because I can't remember and I might screw you up. There is a volume number that you will get to that puts you into an industrial septic system that becomes extremely expensive. If you're just a little, I don't want to call us a dinky dairy, but a little small dairy operation like we are, we were within building a flood-dosed stone septic system. Dual tanks. And dominating. Industrial gets very, very expensive. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I just decided to go. First of all, you're welcome to call us and come to the farm. We don't mind people, whether you're into dairy or not and learning about farming and stuff. But if you were to go up in the loft where my office is at in the house, there are these 3-ring binders, and there are 8 of them that have all of the research we did before we put the first load of stone to put in a driveway. And some of it was through Robert's help, Purdue, all these different, we were pooling resources, getting permits, going to the county, going to the state. If we needed to register with the FDA, we registered with the FDA, all of this sort of stuff. You can never do, if you're planning to do an agricultural business that's new or you need to be rezoned, when you walk into a meeting with notebooks and background information, and you're ready to just drop the hammer on people, you win most of the time. If you walk in there and go, oh, I don't know, I'll have to check into that, that delays the process for one, and it kind of makes you look unsure of what's going on. So I'm married to a scientist. You know, we walked into Farm Credit with a 4-inch binder of our business plan, and they were like, okay, farmers come in with stuff written on napkins from the diner and want money. And they started leaping through that. They're like, okay, you're good. So do the research, pull the resources, and be ready. Well, for us, we talked about it for 2 years, and then we purchased the property. We spent 4.5 years developing the property. I learned from a very wise grazing specialist that the longer I let the grass get established before I put animals on it, the happier I was going to be in the long run. So we extended some things, and we spent our own money. So there were days where, hey, I want to order that bulk tank. Is there $8,000 just laying around? You know, do we need to go dig a jar up out of the backyard? You know, what's the deal? And so we had an extended process. So it was probably from the first thought of Christy trying to bamboozle her husband into this, it was probably close to 6 years but we took our time on purpose.
Kind of giving you the other end of the spectrum. It's okay if you're not looking for a business. And be honest with yourself. Are you willing for a business lifestyle? Or are you just simply wanting an excuse to keep your animals? It's okay. But you do need to think it through. What am I willing to put into this? What do I really want out of it? Some of us ended up with the animals and then, oh no, now what do I do? That's okay, but still do your research. And if you're waffling, do I want sheep? Do I want goats? Do I want dairy? Do I want fiber? Do I want meat? Just come visit us. Make your connections and come see us. You may have to see our places and realize, I hate sheep. Or you may have to come to a farm that's trying to make money and admit to yourself, I am not willing to commit to that kind of a lifestyle. Or I want something in between. I love my beasties. What can I do to have an excuse to keep them? What are some value added? Come to places and schmooze. Visit us, talk to us, and we will help you, but be honest with yourself.
I'll tell you too, get into that lifestyle thing. I've been to a variety of places that have gotten into heritage livestock too. Different old breeds are no longer around, or very few of them around, I should say. But they're trying to establish those breeds around, and that's their goal, is doing that. That's it's not like we're going to make hordes of money in this job, but we're just going to be able to keep those breeds and keep them alive. And we've seen that. Okay, other questions? Well, with that, I think I'm going to thank everybody for doing a wide variety of things we've looked at today. I appreciate you very much, so thank you very much.